My wife confessed to sleeping with her coworker and said it was just stress relief from my demanding work schedule as a surgeon because I was never home and she needed emotional support. When I filed for divorce, she told everyone I was abandoning our marriage over a meaningless fling and that I was being unreasonable for not forgiving her stress management techniques. I'm Aurelius, 34, and I work as a cardiac surgeon at Metropolitan General Hospital. My wife, Octavia, 31, is a marketing consultant who runs her own freelance business from our home. We've been married for 5 years, and until recently, I believed we had built a strong partnership despite the demanding nature of my profession. The challenges of being married to a surgeon are well documented. My schedule is unpredictable, with emergency surgeries that can keep me at the hospital for 18 hours straight. I'm on call frequently, and even during planned time off, I might be called in for critical cases. Octavia knew this when we married, and she initially seemed supportive of my career and the lives it allowed me to save. Our relationship had been going through some rough patches over the past year. Octavia complained frequently about my absence from home, my exhaustion when I was present, and my inability to commit to social plans due to my unpredictable schedule. She felt neglected and unsupported, despite my efforts to be present for important events and to prioritize our relationship when possible. The complaints escalated gradually. What started as occasional comments about missing dinner together became daily criticisms about my priorities. Octavia began suggesting that I cared more about my patients than about our marriage, that I was using work as an excuse to avoid emotional intimacy, and that I needed to find better work-life balance. I tried to address her concerns by scheduling regular date nights, taking vacation time specifically for us, and making efforts to be more emotionally available when I was home. I also suggested couples therapy to help us navigate the unique challenges of my profession, but Octavia dismissed the idea as unnecessary and expensive. The discovery of her affair happened by accident 3 weeks ago. I came home early from the hospital after a surgery was postponed, hoping to surprise Octavia with dinner from her favorite restaurant. Instead, I found her in our living room with her laptop open to a video call with someone I didn't recognize. The conversation I overheard was clearly intimate and personal. They were discussing plans to meet later that week, expressing affection for each other, and making references to previous encounters that were obviously romantic and sexual in nature. When Octavia noticed I was home, she quickly ended the call and closed her laptop, but the damage was already done. My initial reaction was shock and disbelief. I asked her directly who she had been talking to and what the nature of their relationship was. Octavia's response was defensive and evasive. She claimed it was just a friend from work who was going through a difficult time and needed emotional support. When I pressed for more details about the intimate nature of their conversation, Octavia became angry and accused me of being paranoid and controlling. She said I was overreacting to a harmless friendship and that my suspicion revealed how little trust I had in our marriage. But I knew what I had heard, and I couldn't ignore the evidence of my own senses. I asked to see her phone and laptop, which prompted an explosive argument about privacy and trust. Octavia refused to share her devices and instead launched into a litany of complaints about my work schedule and emotional unavailability. The argument continued for hours, with Octavia alternating between denying any inappropriate relationship and justifying her need for outside emotional support. She accused me of neglecting our marriage, of prioritizing my career over our relationship, and of failing to meet her emotional needs. Eventually, faced with my persistence and the obvious inconsistencies in her story, Octavia admitted to having an affair with her coworker, Maximilian. But instead of expressing remorse or apologizing, she immediately began justifying her actions and minimizing their significance. According to Octavia, the relationship with Maximilian was purely physical and emotional support that I had failed to provide. She described it as stress relief necessitated by my constant absence and the loneliness of being married to someone who was never home. She claimed that the affair meant nothing beyond temporary companionship and that I should understand her need for human connection while I was saving lives at the hospital. Octavia's explanation framed her infidelity as a reasonable response to my professional demands rather than a betrayal of our marriage vows. She seemed genuinely surprised that I was upset about her seeking comfort elsewhere when I was unavailable to provide it myself. She suggested that my anger was selfish and unreasonable, given how much I had neglected our relationship. The conversation revealed a fundamental disconnect in how we viewed marriage, commitment, and professional obligations. Octavia apparently believed that my career responsibilities justified her seeking emotional and physical intimacy outside our marriage, while I believed that marriage meant working through challenges together rather than finding alternative sources of support. When I asked about the duration and extent of the affair, Octavia admitted that she had been involved with Maximilian for approximately 6 months. They had been meeting regularly for lunch, spending time together when I was at the hospital, and maintaining constant communication through text and video calls. The relationship included both emotional intimacy and regular sexual encounters. The timeline of the affair coincided with a particularly demanding period at the hospital when I had been working on several complex cases and spending extra hours on call. During this time, I had indeed been less available for social activities and relationship maintenance, but I had communicated openly with Octavia about the temporary nature of this increased workload. What was most disturbing about Octavia's revelation was her complete lack of remorse or acknowledgement that she had violated our marriage vows. Instead of apologizing or expressing guilt, she continued to justify her actions and seemed to expect my understanding and forgiveness based on her explanation of unmet needs. Octavia proposed that we could continue our marriage with the understanding that she might need outside emotional support during particularly demanding periods of my career. She suggested that this arrangement could actually strengthen our relationship by reducing the pressure on me to meet all her emotional needs while maintaining my professional obligations. The proposal that I should accept ongoing infidelity as a reasonable accommodation for my career demands was so shocking that I initially couldn't respond. The idea that marriage vows could be suspended based on work schedules revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of commitment and partnership. I told Octavia that I needed time to process her revelation and consider our options. I moved into the guest bedroom and began sleeping separately while I decided how to respond to the situation. During this time, Octavia continued to behave as if her affair was a minor issue that could be resolved through better understanding of her needs. She made no effort to end her relationship with Maximilian, continued her regular communication with him, and seemed to expect that our marriage would continue with this new arrangement normalized. When I asked if she planned to stop seeing him, Octavia said she would consider it, but that cutting off all emotional support would be difficult given my continued work demands. After a week of reflection and consultation with a divorce attorney, I made the decision to file for divorce. The combination of Octavia's infidelity, her lack of remorse, her refusal to end the affair, and her expectation that I should accept ongoing betrayal made reconciliation impossible. When I informed Octavia of my decision to divorce, her reaction was immediate anger and disbelief. She accused me of overreacting to what she characterized as a minor relationship issue. She claimed that I was throwing away our marriage over a meaningless affair that could easily be resolved through better communication about our respective needs. Octavia's response to the divorce filing revealed the extent to which she had rationalized her behavior and minimized its impact on our marriage. She seemed genuinely shocked that I would end our relationship over what she continued to describe as stress relief and emotional support rather than infidelity. Update 1. The 2 weeks following my divorce filing have been revealing in terms of Octavia's true character and the extent of her affair with Maximilian. What I initially discovered was apparently only the surface of a much more extensive relationship that had been ongoing for longer than she originally admitted. My divorce attorney, Cordelia Blackthorne, advised me to document all evidence of the affair for potential use in divorce proceedings. During this process, I discovered that Octavia's phone and laptop contained extensive evidence of her relationship with Maximilian dating back nearly a year, not the 6 months she had initially claimed. The digital evidence revealed a systematic pattern of deception that went far beyond the physical and emotional affair Octavia had admitted to. She had been lying about her whereabouts, creating false work obligations to spend time with Maximilian, and maintaining an elaborate cover story about their relationship. Text message records showed that Octavia and Maximilian had been planning overnight trips together, meeting regularly during times when I was at the hospital, and discussing their relationship in terms that suggested long-term planning rather than temporary stress relief. They had exchanged explicit photos, made plans for a future together, and even discussed the possibility of Octavia leaving our marriage. The most damaging evidence was a series of messages where Octavia expressed frustration about having to maintain her marriage while pursuing her relationship with Maximilian. She complained about my presence at home interfering with their communication, discussed strategies for spending more time together without arousing my suspicion, and made derogatory comments about my personality and our marriage. In these private communications, Octavia portrayed our marriage as a burden she was enduring rather than a relationship she valued. She described me as boring, emotionally unavailable, and obsessed with work to the exclusion of all other priorities. She expressed resentment about having to pretend to be a supportive wife while maintaining her affair. Most shocking were messages where Octavia discussed financial planning related to our potential divorce. She had been consulting with Maximilian about asset division, potential alimony payments, and strategies for maximizing her financial benefit from ending our marriage. This evidence suggested that her affair was not simply emotional and physical infidelity, but part of a calculated plan to transition out of our marriage. The financial investigation revealed additional deceptions that I had not previously discovered. Octavia had been using our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, and gifts related to her affair with Maximilian. She had charged hundreds of dollars in relationship expenses to accounts that I was ultimately responsible for paying. She had also been dishonest about her work schedule and income, claiming to be working on client projects during times when she was actually spending time with Maximilian. This deception had led me to take on additional financial responsibilities based on her false claims about reduced income during busy periods. When confronted with this evidence, Octavia's response was to escalate her justifications and blame me more aggressively for creating the conditions that led to her affair. She claimed that my work schedule had forced her to seek companionship elsewhere and that the financial and emotional costs of the affair were reasonable expenses for maintaining her mental health. Octavia also began spreading her version of events to our mutual friends and family members, portraying herself as a neglected wife who had been driven to seek support outside her marriage due to my professional obsessions. She described her affair as a cry for help that I had ignored and characterized my divorce filing as an overreaction to her attempts to cope with loneliness. The narrative Octavia created positioned her as the victim of my career demands rather than the perpetrator of marriage betrayal. She told friends that I had never prioritized our relationship, that I was emotionally unavailable and unsupportive, and that her affair was a natural consequence of my neglect. Several mutual friends contacted me to express sympathy for Octavia's situation and to suggest that I reconsider the divorce based on her explanations of our marriage problems. These conversations revealed how effectively Octavia had manipulated the narrative to portray her infidelity as justified self-care rather than relationship betrayal. My response to these interventions was to share selected evidence of Octavia's deception with close friends who approached me about reconciliation. The text messages, financial records, and timeline of her affair provided clear evidence that her behavior was calculated and deceptive rather than a response to temporary marriage problems. The reaction of friends who saw this evidence was immediate and dramatic. Several people who had initially supported Octavia's position changed their perspective completely after understanding the extent of her deception and the duration of her affair. They realized that her portrayal of our marriage problems was one-sided and designed to justify behavior that was clearly inappropriate. Update 2. 1 month after filing for divorce, the legal proceedings have revealed additional information about Octavia's affair and her plans for our marriage that completely vindicate my decision to end our relationship. During the discovery process, my attorney obtained phone records, credit card statements, and other financial documents that painted a comprehensive picture of Octavia's deception. The affair with Maximilian had been ongoing for 14 months, not the 6 months originally claimed, and had involved extensive financial costs that Octavia had hidden from me. The phone records showed thousands of text messages and hundreds of hours of phone calls between Octavia and Maximilian over the past year. They were in constant communication, often talking multiple times per day and exchanging messages late into the night. The volume of their communication exceeded that of most married couples and demonstrated a level of emotional intimacy that was clearly inappropriate. Credit card analysis revealed that Octavia had spent over $8,000 on affair-related expenses during the past year. She had paid for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, weekend trips, gifts, and even clothing specifically for her time with Maximilian. All of these expenses had been charged to accounts that I was responsible for paying, meaning that I had unknowingly funded her affair. The most damaging evidence came from Maximilian's own communications, which my attorney was able to obtain through subpoena. His text messages and emails revealed that he and Octavia had been planning for her to leave our marriage for several months and had discussed specific strategies for maximizing her financial benefit from divorce proceedings. These communications showed that Octavia had been providing Maximilian with detailed information about our finances, including my salary, our asset values, and potential alimony calculations. She had been essentially conducting financial reconnaissance on our marriage while maintaining the pretense of working toward reconciliation. Maximilian's messages also revealed his own character and motivations for pursuing a married woman. He expressed satisfaction about destroying our marriage, made derogatory comments about my profession and appearance, and seemed to view seducing Octavia as a conquest rather than a genuine relationship. Most disturbing were exchanges where Maximilian and Octavia discussed strategies for provoking me to file for divorce so that she could claim victim status in the proceedings. They had apparently planned scenarios designed to make me appear unreasonable and controlling while positioning her as a neglected spouse seeking freedom from an oppressive marriage. The legal evidence also revealed that Octavia had been dishonest about her business income and expenses during our marriage. She had been reporting lower income than she actually earned and claiming business expenses that were actually personal costs related to her affair. This financial deception had led me to take on disproportionate household expenses based on false information about our respective financial contributions. When presented with this comprehensive evidence, Octavia's attorney advised her to accept my proposed divorce settlement rather than contest the proceedings. The documentation of her extensive deception, financial fraud, and calculated planning made her position legally untenable and her claims of victimhood unsustainable. However, Octavia continued her public relations campaign among our social circle, now claiming that I had hired investigators to spy on her and that the divorce proceedings were vindictive attempts to punish her for seeking happiness outside our failed marriage. She portrayed the evidence gathering as harassment and characterized my attorney's subpoenas as abusive legal tactics. The response of our mutual friends to these new revelations was swift and decisive. Several couples who had initially supported Octavia completely cut contact with her after learning about the extent of her deception. They realized that her complaints about our marriage had been deliberate manipulation designed to gain sympathy while she pursued her affair. My medical colleagues, who had initially been sympathetic to Octavia's complaints about my work schedule, were particularly offended by her characterization of my career as a selfish obsession with work. They understood the demands of surgical practice and the importance of the lives I was responsible for saving. They viewed her affair as a betrayal of the sacrifices that medical families make for patient care. The most satisfying vindication came from Octavia's own family members, who had initially blamed me for the divorce. When they learned about the duration and extent of her affair, her financial deception, and her calculated planning to leave our marriage, they were forced to acknowledge that she was entirely responsible for destroying our relationship. Octavia's sister, Cordelia, called me to apologize for initially supporting Octavia's version of events and to express shock at the evidence of her sister's behavior. She admitted that Octavia had always been manipulative and self-centered, but that she had never imagined her capable of such extensive deception. 3 months after the divorce filing, the legal proceedings have concluded, and the broader consequences of Octavia's behavior have become clear. The settlement was finalized quickly once the evidence of her affair and financial deception became undeniable, and the impact on her personal and professional reputation has been severe. The final divorce settlement heavily favored my position due to the evidence of Octavia's adultery and financial fraud. She received minimal alimony and was required to reimburse me for the affair-related expenses she had charged to our joint accounts. The judge was particularly critical of her use of marital funds to support her extramarital relationship and her attempts to hide income during the proceedings. Octavia's relationship with Maximilian ended abruptly once the divorce proceedings revealed the extent of their communications and planning. Apparently, Maximilian had not expected their private messages to become part of legal proceedings, and he was uncomfortable with the public exposure of his role in destroying our marriage. The revelation that Maximilian had been primarily interested in the conquest of seducing a married woman rather than building a genuine relationship with Octavia became clear once the legal pressure ended. He immediately distanced himself from her and began pursuing other targets, leaving Octavia alone and unsupported during the most difficult period of her life. Octavia's professional reputation suffered significant damage when her business clients learned about her behavior during our marriage. Several clients terminated their contracts with her marketing consultancy after discovering that she had been dishonest about her work schedule and had used business accounts for personal expenses related to her affair. The professional consequences extended beyond lost clients to damaged relationships within her industry. Marketing is a relationship-based business that depends heavily on trust and reputation, and Octavia's deception during our marriage raised questions about her honesty and reliability in professional contexts. Her personal social circle also collapsed as more details about her behavior became known. Friends who had initially supported her claims about our marriage problems were embarrassed to learn that they had been manipulated into supporting someone who was systematically deceiving her spouse and planning to profit from destroying her marriage. The most dramatic consequence was Octavia's estrangement from her own family members, who were mortified by her behavior and the public nature of the divorce proceedings. Her parents, who had initially blamed me for the marriage failure, were forced to acknowledge that their daughter had behaved in ways that were morally and legally indefensible. 6 months after our separation, I received information that Octavia had attempted to reconcile with several ex-boyfriends and had been unsuccessful in forming new relationships. Her reputation for deception and manipulation had spread throughout our social circle, making it difficult for her to establish trust with potential partners. The contrast between our post-divorce lives has been stark. While Octavia has struggled with professional setbacks, social isolation, and failed relationships, I've been able to rebuild my life with the support of friends and colleagues who understand the demands of my profession and respect the sacrifices I make for patient care. I have started dating someone new, Dr. Isadora Fleming, a fellow surgeon who understands the demands of medical practice and shares my commitment to saving lives. Our relationship is built on mutual respect, honest communication, and shared values rather than the manipulation and deception that characterized my marriage to Octavia. The experience has taught me valuable lessons about recognizing manipulation, trusting my instincts about inappropriate behavior, and prioritizing relationships with people who share my values and support my professional obligations. Octavia's affair was not stress relief or emotional support. It was calculated betrayal designed to serve her own interests while maintaining the financial and social benefits of marriage. Most importantly, I have learned that some people will always find ways to justify their selfish behavior and blame others for the consequences of their choices. Octavia's characterization of her affair as reasonable stress management revealed a fundamental lack of integrity and commitment that would have eventually destroyed our marriage regardless of my work schedule. The medical profession requires dedication, sacrifice, and commitment to saving lives that some people cannot understand or support. I am grateful to have discovered Octavia's true character before we had children or built more extensive financial entanglements that would have made separation more complicated. Her attempts to portray me as an unreasonable spouse who abandoned our marriage over a meaningless affair ultimately backfired when the evidence revealed the calculated and extensive nature of her deception. The truth has a way of emerging despite attempts to manipulate narratives and blame innocent parties for relationship failures. I am now in a much healthier relationship with someone who values honesty, supports my career, and understands that true partnership means working through challenges together rather than seeking outside alternatives when things become difficult. The contrast between authentic love and manipulative deception could not be clearer. Honestly, I was blown away listening to this one. Time to read and see what the viewers had to say about this one. This one has 2 comments. The first comment says, "The financial fraud aspect of this is what really gets me. She literally made you pay for her affair with joint credit cards, then had the audacity to call it stress relief like it was some kind of medical treatment you should have supported. The fact that she was planning your divorce while pretending to work on the marriage shows this was never about your work schedule. It was about her character. Good for you for documenting everything and not falling for her manipulation." Now, let's move on to the next, which says, "As the wife of an ER doctor, I can't imagine using his demanding schedule as an excuse to cheat. Being married to someone in medicine means understanding the sacrifice and supporting their mission to save lives. Your ex-wife's stress relief excuse is insulting to every medical spouse who actually honors their vows during difficult times. You dodged a bullet with someone who clearly never understood what partnership means.